Thank you for all of you coming over here because this things we're about to discuss are in particular going to answer a lot of things for you. And the reason we're putting this out is not because we have the right answers. We do not claim to have the right answers because, as Abid pointed out, we don't have data. We started gathering data 2 years ago. But we're here so that you can start asking the right questions and who to ask those questions from. Why is it happening in Lahore, Punjab in specific, and what sort of players are participating in this happening? Who is contributing the most? Individuals, vested interests, that's a word being thrown around since yesterday. It's often claimed that लाहौर की हवा जो है वो सिर्फ 3-4 महीनों 2 महीने के लिए नवंबर के लिए गंदी होती है. But the truth is that it's always throughout the year it's like this. This is the EPD standard. So we have the National Environmental Quality Standards. Since the 18th Amendment, they became the Punjab Environmental Quality Standards. The annual legal limit is 15 micrograms. And we're basically, throughout the year, we're above it. We've never actually achieved the annual legal limit. And in December, you are basically 20 times the legal limit. And this is the whole month. This is the whole month. In Delhi,
can I add something to this? So you see at the bottom it's saying annual legal limit. There's also daily legal limit, which is 35. So the government often says like today it was fine that we were like close to like 35, 36. But the reason why you have different daily limits is because there could be a certain day where you get a dust storm or some anomaly happens where you have a few days in the year where the average goes to like 35. But that's why the annual figure is the one to look out for the most at 15. Like we're never even close to that figure. And these are government figures.
So you see, that's the whole month of December. That's the average for December as a whole. In Delhi, like 6 hours ago, they declared a public health emergency. And the rule they've set is that for 48 hours, if the AQI index is beyond 400, we're going to call it a public health emergency. That's the rule the Delhi's EPA follows. And the good thing about them is that multiple agencies are gathering data. So you don't have just the EPA there gathering data. You have the Central Pollution Control Board, which is autonomous in a sense that Delhi's data might not be similar to their data, but you have an official body that tells you that this government's agency isn't doing their work. Then you also have their IIT universities forecasting a lot of this. So when the forecasts match with the data being gathered, you have a certain sense that this is a general issue all over North India. This is from the Punjab Gazette, which officially shows that these are the limits. So it's there online, it's on the website of EPD. Anyone can go and read all of these things. When the government comes and denies these things, they don't say that the air is good. They are no longer claiming that the air is good. What they say is that it's just 192. It's just 200. It's not 300 yet. So they're not even claiming that it's clean. They're saying it's not beyond index. And beyond index is the point where people start puking in the streets. They'll stop by their bikes and they start puking in the streets. That's the beyond index point. So what they're implying is that we're waiting for that point to happen. This is the monsoon bit where rain pushes down a lot. So August, for example, is one of the months where we'll have blue skies in Lahore. That's probably the only month, August and end of July. So this is what I wanted to come to. This is the crux of the issue. A lot of us have been told that crop burning in Indian Punjab does it. So crop burning happens in our Punjab, even happens in places in Sindh, even happens in places in KP. Wherever there is agriculture, there'll be small holdings where farmers aren't rich enough to get the very, very short paddy residue, so they burn it. And I recently visited Burewala. It was happening in smaller land holdings, bigger landlords weren't doing it. Some use the paddy waste as animal feed. Some use it as a base for their chicken dens. So they come up with uses for it. It's not like everyone is burning it. And similarly, in Indian Punjab, they have uses for it, but there are certain limitations for farmers over there as well. So what happens is that our government comes in, shows this image from the NASA's EOSDI satellite and says that these are thermal anomalies in Indian Punjab. हमारी साइड पे नहीं है और ये सारा धुआं प्रोड्यूस कर रही है. The issue is that the buildup of smoke wouldn't happen if there weren't already enough pollutants in the air. The crop burning is only adding to what's already in the air. So you can say that throughout your year's average is 100 microgram of PM 2.5. Crop burning adds another 100 for about a month, mid-October to mid-November. But the peak of the smog last season, when crop burning was over at the end of November, the peak came in December. You never know when this temperature inversion is going to take place. And that is usually guided by climatic factors. And we do not have any serious forecasting in all of this. So you can see this report is more recent. And this was done specifically because of the smog issue. The Food and Agriculture Organization teamed up with the Agricultural Department of Pakistan, of Punjab, and they came up with this sectoral inventory of emissions. And this is for October and November in specific. So they clearly showed that the PM 2.5 particles, the biggest contributor to it was industry, and then it was transport. But overall, when you take in all of these pollutants, the NOx, the SO2, the carbon monoxide, then transport takes the lead. And crop residue burning is third over here. Similarly, if you look at this study from 2014, it uses data from previous years, but what it came up with was a similar summary of sectoral inventory that transport, again, is the leading cause. And whenever we say transport, we get confused. What sort of transport? Who is causing this? Why transport? The issue is all of us drive cars. There's no other way or mode of transport. At least for most of Punjab, there's no other mode of transport. Bikes, private vehicles, maybe in some places like Lahore, you have new car sharing services, ride-hailing services. Public transport is getting better in Lahore. Otherwise, everyone uses petrol cars. So when we say transport, there is also further subdivisions into it. Petrol has different pollutants, and again, we discussed how manganese is a big issue. And internationally, you have a standard that only 8.42 microns of manganese can be added to petrol, which essentially helps it to combust easily. You'll have better combustion. What we're doing, and this also didn't come from the government. What happened was the Honda cars were shutting down. The Japanese came over here. So Japanese Automotive Manufacturers Association came over here and they tested the petrol themselves. They didn't want to look at the reports from the petroleum division. And they found out it's beyond 50. And some of the petrol had 80 microns of manganese, which should be 8. So manganese inside petrol was creating different sorts of pollutants. But the bigger pollution is coming from diesel. So when you come over here, the issue is that Euro 2 essentially is, as Abid pointed out, more than 20 years old actually.
Euro 4 is 20 years old.
Euro 4 is 24 years old. Euro 2 is more than 20 years old. It's from the early 90s. And Euro 1 was essentially the fuel quality being used during the World War II. So that's where from the Euro standards coming from. The fuel standard in 80s that was being used in Europe was really, really bad, and all of these cities started having issues with it. The Euro 2 in use in Pakistan has 500 parts per million. Euro 2, we're importing a lot of this from Kuwait. But Pakistan also has its own standards called the Pak standard. And Pak standard in some cases is equivalent to Euro 2, but Pak standard for diesel is actually 1,000 parts per million. And these are discrepancies that usually get bogged down in bureaucratic doublespeak. But what's essentially happening is we're telling people it's Euro 2, but the refined diesel in Pakistan is not Euro 2 entirely. It's just right at the bottom edge of Euro 2. And Euro 2 was, the plan to introduce Euro 2 was planned during, I think, early 2000, in 2003, 2004. We decided that we're going to introduce Euro 2 because our fuel is so dirty. And the plan was to get it done in 2-3 years. The refineries came up, all the big refineries, and the Pakistan refinery at that point was government owned, which was later privatized as well. all these refineries came up and said, we don't have the money for the upgrades. They have to install diesel, hydrodesulfurization units, which takes out the sulfur from the diesel. And what happens is they ask for money. We don't have the money. The government should subsidize us. So the genius government at the time decided to subsidize all of petroleum and diesel. So they tax the consumers 7.5% on each liter of diesel or petrol, which came to be known as the deemed duty. So it's technically a subsidy. We're giving subsidy to fossil fuel. What we found out is we're still giving it. And the 7.5% got charged for the past 18, 17 years. All of this money started going into an account which the petroleum division made, which is a trust account basically. It's not directly the petroleum division's own budget or anything. They made a trust account, the money went there, and as they felt, they dispersed the money to the refineries. So all these big refineries started getting money out of it. And Atik Refinery's website, if you open it, their environment section, they have an environment section, Atik Refinery. So it says that we installed this diesel hydrodesulfurization plant at a cost of $134 million. I'm assuming that Atik Refinery is one of the biggest, so all the other 5-6 refineries had a similar cost. You add all of that up, maybe about $1 billion. But what we found out is that what the standing committees in the Senate and the National Assembly have been told is that in the past 17 years since this deemed duty has been in place, they have gathered at least a minimum of 290 billion rupees, and the upper limit of this is 500 billion. No one has a sure figure. But this is from government's own people telling the figure. And if you convert it into dollar terms, even if you put in the currency conversion rate at this point, you'll still come up with a minimum of $1.8 billion. And this deemed duty was supposed to have lapsed in 2016. It was given a minimal extension of 6 months till early 2017, and it lapsed. So the law that said this deemed duty has to be taken has lapsed. It does not exist anymore, but we're still being charged for it. And nobody knows why. On each liter that you get, 7.5% deemed duty is charged, petrol, diesel, and nobody knows where the money is going. The refineries, if you check their financial reports before 2017, there's a disbursement ahead which says that they've been getting the money. But in the financial reports of 2018 and 19 in Atak Refinery, National Refinery, the disbursement head basically says that they've demanded this money. They're still demanding the money. Apparently, they're not even getting the money. But the money is going somewhere. No one knows where, and the standing committee has recently asked where this money is going and why haven't we gone to Euro 4 if we are still collecting this money. And the question then remains, who is either very, very incompetent within the government, who doesn't want better Euro fuel standard in Pakistan, and why must the citizens suffer for whoever doesn't want it to happen? What recently happened regarding this is that I told you that we import a lot of our diesel. We have a few refineries and they're capable of manufacturing Euro 2 diesel. And that comes about 40% of our total demand. The rest of the 60% is imported from Kuwait Petroleum Company. So Kuwait Petroleum Company actually asked the government of Pakistan that we cannot sell you Euro 2 anymore. We're not going to make it after Euro 2 2020. We're going to upgrade to Euro 5. We do not have more clients for Euro 2, so it doesn't make sense for us to keep producing it. The government of Pakistan from Petroleum Division has requested them to please give us more time. And the reason is that if they do upgrade to Euro 5 and start selling us Euro 5, and these refineries are still making Euro 2, you will have to stop buying from the refineries. You cannot have two types of diesel or petrol in the same market. You're not going to have different nozzles at a petrol station where from one nozzle you're buying Euro 5, from one nozzle you're buying Euro 2. And the common sense would be to buy a better fuel. Everyone will start going from Euro 2. The refineries who are not capable of manufacturing Euro 2 or Euro 5 will have to stop selling it. They won't have money anymore by selling products. This is our understanding at this point, and we have provided and written to the National Assembly Standing Committee as well. So the question here is, why must all of us, especially citizens of Punjab, and as Abid pointed out, we're unlucky. Punjab is unlucky because we have this specific temperature inversion which extends from all the way from North India to central Punjab, central Pakistan. So we are unlucky. There's no way we're going to. This temperature inversion is always going to happen. This is how climate is programmed in this region. It's going to keep happening. But certain emissions weren't being put out. Certain emissions like what we're doing now with the vehicle population increasing every day, it wasn't happening in the last 10 years. You had vehicles, you had road traffic in Lahore. All of the fuel was still poor. And that's why we continuously say that the air quality was still bad. But it was not as bad as this because as you increase more vehicles, as you put more vehicles in Lahore, and all of us who are living in Lahore have noticed this. The traffic is a big problem. If we look over here, so apparently this air quality monitor is placed somewhere near Wagah border. And it's been specifically placed by DPD to say that the PM 2.5 on this monitor is higher. So this is coming from India's side. Like they're wasting the entire monitor just to prove this point. But in the same air quality monitors are still in place. You can see that only one at the Met office has all the sensors operational. A lot of these monitors, you don't even have it. There are stories that people actually took out the sensors and sold them off part by part. And over here, if you see the NO, nitrogen oxide, in where PM 2.5 is low, nitrogen oxide is higher. And here PM 2.5 is higher, and nitrogen oxide is lower. A lot of these readings don't add up. And that's why in a lot of cases we stop trusting the EPD's monitoring. And they keep on saying that we have the more credible data, We were lucky enough that the US consulates have installed US EPA standard monitors now. And that allows us to have a standard baseline. And the baseline says that the air visual monitors are more or less within the range of accurate data. This is from 31st December 2018. And these are various parts of Lahore. We still have all of these monitors here and there. And Punjab Assembly, so we have the person who put up this particular monitor over here. And this was an eye-opening part because Mal Road, where all the legislators sit themselves, is one of the dirtiest parts of Lahore. And similarly, you have Guru Mangat Road. This is a semi-industrial, but more or less more offices over here, media houses over here. Firozpur Road, Canal Road, Gulberg area, a lot of schools over here, a lot of markets over here. Not entirely industrial, but because of the Canal Road, you have a lot of traffic going from here. This is the half-hourly AQI, along with traffic concentration. I pulled off the traffic concentration data from Google Maps API. So they have traffic concentrations on particular routes. We pulled it off, and the AQI change factor basically shows that how quickly AQI changes if traffic concentration changes. And this is from Mal Road. When you see that government offices close about 5:30, 6 p.m. Some of them close at 5 o'clock. So traffic concentration is pretty high on Mal Road at that time, and it starts going down. AQS also starts going down. Change also starts. Obviously, climatic factors make it, in absolute terms, it's going high. But change factor is starting to go down because traffic is lesser. Next slide, we have a similar scene on Firozpur Road as well. Similar traffic issue. So we have a clear-cut understanding that fuel is causing a lot of this. And in the very, very short term, we should have vehicle restrictions in Lahore. People shouldn't be allowed to use private vehicles like they are doing currently. You have ways to send kids to school. And it doesn't happen like the government wants. If you discuss it with the EPD official, they'll say, log karte hain. People are doing it, hum kya kare? But the simple fact is, nowhere in the world, you go to Berlin, Vienna, all of these cities, no one decided to quickly shift from private cars to public transport in a day. they made it a point to make private transport so expensive that all of the people started to use public transport, and the money being earned from all the tolls went into public transport. Now Delhi is going to have odd even from Monday. They already have a public health emergency. This is a clear-cut precedent for us that we need to do, because we're facing the. I cannot emphasize how similar these two crises and these two cities are. Same sorts of housing development, industrial development, population, traffic concentration. It's entirely similar. So the solutions have to be similar. And in the short term, you have to impose an emergency that makes it a point to have vehicle restrictions. Even a vehicle-free day in Lahore, why not? Have a day, if you can shut down the Liberty Chalk for a day for a Sri Lanka versus Pakistan match, why not for pollution, to mitigate pollution? So, next slide. There are certain policy measures already which the government has, so you don't even need to give them suggestions. They have been given a lot of suggestions over the last 14, 15 years. The Smog Commission report, the Punjab Clean Air Action Plan, the Pakistan Clean Air Action Plan. And incidentally, the Pakistan Clean Air Action Plan was made when Malik Amin Saab was the Minister for Environment in 2004. In that tenure, he was the Minister for Environment. He's currently the Federal Advisor for Climate Change. So he knows that these things exist. And this document isn't very shoddy. You see a lot of good ideas in it. One of the bad ideas was to upgrade to Euro 2 because we didn't have Euro 2 back then. We need to upgrade to Euro 5 at least. So a lot of the policy ideas are available, and you have even political ideas to deal with the crop burning issue. And it's not that we are currently facing a crisis of ideas or a crisis of clear expertise in this. The only crisis over here is the political will to deal with this. And there's certain elements which also force the politicians to not act on it. And as we go further, like I said, we're only here to help you question the right things. As you start questioning, Aisha has set up a document, she'll hand it away to you. If you start questioning the legislators, the policymakers, we'll start seeing something happen. And if we don't, next year is going to be the same, the years after that, continuously till maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 have some sort of lung cancer or other diseases. So that's it. And thank you so much. I think we're going to have questions now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on.